Welcome. This is another in a series of videos with Aubrey Daniels from Aubrey Daniels International, based on the book Oops, Management Practices That Waste Time and Money and What to Do About Them. In this video, we're going to talk about what Aubrey says is one of the most common tools that companies use to motivate and why it is probably the worst thing that they could do. You got my attention. That's Employee of the Month.
Yes.
They made a movie about this.
Yes.
Why is it not a good idea?
Well, how many people get positively reinforced in Employee of the Month?
One.
How many people get punished?
All the rest.
Well, why would you have a management practice where you tend to punish more people than you reinforce?
And that's not the only reason that it's a problem. There's also that immediate feedback. This is done down the road a piece.
Well, Employee of the Month violates every known principle of effective reinforcement. It's not personal, it's not immediate, it's not frequent. So why would we do this? See, the idea is that people think that recognizing one employee will cause others to want to do that. But if you think about it, you got 100 employees, how many of them are going to be Employee of the Month during their lifetime? It's just not.
Well, and they get the parking space, and before you know it, it's the 17th of the month.
That's right.
And pretty soon you're going to be just another.
Just another. But see, the whole idea of being just another employee strikes me as a problem for organizations. What is the problem with being just another employee? Everybody ought to be recognized for their contribution on a continuous basis, not just single somebody out for special recognition.
All right, two questions. Why is it so popular?
It's easy. It doesn't require much management time or
thought.
Yeah, well, you got an Employee of the Month parking space, you got a picture, you got a free meal. And you've motivated everybody for the rest of the month.
Sure. The other question is, if not that, then what?
Well, I think that, if you look at why you do this, one of the things I recommend is that if you're doing this to get people to know the other person, then we could have sort of a company Facebook or something where, people put their biographies online for other people to see, and we can find commonalities among people, and they develop friendships, and if they have friendships, they have better working relationships.
We just did that, and we have long-term employees. I'm going reading these bios and finding things I have no idea.
Absolutely, and things that are of interest about them, and their outside activity is not so much a benefit to the company, but it helps relationships between people when they have something in common. If I'm a Gator and I discover that you're a Gator, why we have something to deal with, and we work probably better together than we would if you were a Bulldog and I'm a Gator.
Which I am and you are, so much for that. Okay, now ranking employees. We did this one point. The guy, my business partner, called it a totem pole.
Yes.
Let's put the top people at the top of the totem pole and the bottom people at the bottom, and that way we can figure out where our opportunities for improvement are, because we can whack these people at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I understand that there are reasons, legitimate reasons for ranking people. But ranking people sets a bias. And the idea is that we tend to be more favorable to people we rank on the top than the people that are not on the top. Or we tend to be more negative to the people on the bottom than they probably deserve, because we look for only things that confirm our bias. So ranking, whether we're ranking employees, plants, offices, what happens when we do that is that we put people in competition with one another. And we don't want employees to compete with each other for reinforcers. We want them to compete with the outside competition.
Sure. You want collaboration, training to lift those up. It was interesting that, to some extent, the implication of the book is you virtually should have no turnover.
Right.
And that if you do, when someone leaves or if you're going to fire them, one of the most important things you can do is find out how you failed them.
Yes. The whole idea, there's a distribution center up in Ohio where they have basically repetitious jobs, relatively low pay, 700 employees, 3 years, dismissed 2 employees for
Unbelievable.
performance issues. The reason was that Ron Dennis, who's the center manager, whenever a problem came up, his question to his staff was, how did we fail that person? In other words, if we had done the right job with that person, they should have been able to do the job because we hired them, to do a job, and we thought they could do a job at the outset. So why didn't they do that? So where did we fail? Now there were 2 occasions where they did everything right, and the person still didn't measure up. So they terminated them, and that's good. But the point is that should be a smaller and smaller part of the issue, the problem.
Last question. There are situations where ranking does work and can serve as a motivational force. In the book, it's gold, silver, bronze. Maybe you could go into what's that look like?
Okay, well, the idea is that if you look at accomplishments, we can set targets to where you could be in a silver level or a gold level or a platinum level.
Based on performance.
Yeah. It's like Mary Kay has a pink Cadillac. Well, she doesn't have a limit to the number of pink Cadillacs. As a matter of fact, the company now would love for every sales associate to have a pink Cadillac. If we have a platinum level, we want all employees to be in the platinum level. So we don't want to set barriers up so that we can have only a certain number of people in that category. The idea is that the company does best if everybody is in the platinum level.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Absolutely.
Aubrey Daniels, thank you. This is another in a series of videos from Aubrey Daniels International based on the book Oops, Management Practices That Waste Time and Money and What to Do Instead. Available now online at aubreydaniels.com.